The billionaire faked a heart attack to test his poor maid. What her toddler did next will melt your heart. Marcus Wellington III stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights flicker like earthbound stars. At 33, he had everything money could buy: a tech empire worth billions, properties on 3 continents, and a name that made investors salivate. Yet lately, he'd been feeling a hollowness that no acquisition could fill. The problem, Marcus had concluded, was trust. Everyone wanted something from him. Business partners saw dollar signs. Women saw security and status. Even his own family seemed more interested in their trust fund distributions than in him as a person. After his last relationship ended, when he discovered his fiancée had been feeding stories to tabloids for cash, Marcus had grown cynical about human nature. "Mr. Wellington, I've finished the living room. Should I start on the study?" The soft voice belonged to Elena Rodriguez, his housekeeper of 3 months. She stood in the doorway, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, her uniform neat despite the long day's work. Marcus turned, studying her with the same analytical gaze he used in boardrooms. Elena was 28. He knew from her employment file, a single mother supporting a 3-year-old daughter. She worked 3 cleaning jobs to make ends meet, yet she never complained. She never asked for advances on her paycheck or hinted at her difficulties. She simply did her work with quiet dignity and left. "That's fine, Elena. Thank you." He paused, watching her start to turn away. "How's your daughter?" "Sophia, isn't it?" Elena's face transformed, the tired lines around her eyes softening. "She's wonderful. Thank you for asking. She started counting to 20 in English and Spanish this week." "That's impressive for 3 years old." "She's my everything," Elena said simply, and Marcus saw a wealth of love in her expression that made something twist in his chest. When was the last time anyone had looked that way about him? Not his money, not his influence, just him. After Elena left for the study, an idea began forming in Marcus's mind. It was manipulative, perhaps even cruel, but he needed to know. He needed to know if there was anyone in his life who would help him when there was nothing to gain from it. Elena seemed kind, but kindness was easy when you were being paid. What would she do in a crisis, when helping him might actually cost her something? The plan crystallized over the next hour. Tomorrow he would stage a test, a fake heart attack. He'd see what Elena did when she thought he was dying. Would she call 911 and stay to help? Would she panic and run? Or would she see it as an opportunity, perhaps checking his pockets or calling a tabloid before calling for help? Marcus felt a twinge of guilt, but pushed it aside. He'd been betrayed too many times. He needed to know. The next morning, Marcus dismissed his usual security detail, claiming he wanted privacy for a conference call. Elena arrived at 9, as always, with Sophia in tow. Her usual babysitter had canceled. She explained apologetically, and she couldn't afford to miss work. "It's fine," Marcus heard himself say, surprised by his own tolerance. He generally didn't allow personal complications to interfere with work. But something about the little girl, with her dark curls and curious brown eyes, made him soften. "She can play in the living room while you work." "Thank you, Mr. Wellington." "Sophia, what do you say?" "Thank you," the child chirped, her face breaking into a smile that was pure sunshine. Marcus retreated to his home office, ostensibly to work, but actually to prepare. He'd researched heart attack symptoms online. He would clutch his chest, struggle to breathe, collapse. It would be convincing enough. Through his office's partially open door, he could hear Elena working in the adjacent room, occasionally speaking softly to Sophia. The child was remarkably well-behaved, amusing herself with a few worn toys she'd brought in a small backpack. At 10:30, Marcus decided it was time. He opened his door and took a few steps into the hallway, making sure he was in Elena's line of sight. Then he gasped, clutching his chest dramatically. "Mr. Wellington?" Elena's head snapped up from the bookshelf she was dusting. Marcus made his breathing labored and forced panic into his eyes. "I can't breathe." He staggered, grabbing the wall for support, then let himself slide to the floor, his back against the hallway wall. He clutched his left arm, remembering that was a classic symptom, and let his head loll to the side. Through barely open eyes, he watched Elena's reaction. She dropped her dust cloth immediately and ran to him, her face draining of color. "Mr. Wellington." "Oh my God." She fell to her knees beside him, her hands fluttering uncertainly. "I'm calling 911 right now." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, starting to dial. Marcus felt a small satisfaction. At least she was calling for help first, not rifling through his pockets. But that was the bare minimum of human decency, wasn't it? But then something unexpected happened. Little Sophia tottered over, her toy bunny dragging on the floor behind her. She looked at Marcus with those enormous brown eyes, and her little face crumpled with concern. "The nice man is sick, Mommy?" she asked in her small voice, a quaver of fear running through it. "Yes, baby, but the doctors are coming to help," Elena said, her own voice breaking as she gave the address to the 911 operator. Sophia looked at Marcus for a long moment, then at her mother, then back at Marcus. Something seemed to shift in her small face, as if she'd made a decision. She walked closer and carefully set her worn bunny on Marcus's chest, patting it gently. "Mr. Hops makes me feel better when I'm sick," she said solemnly. "He can help you too." Then, with the unself-conscious affection of a child, she leaned in and pressed a kiss to Marcus's forehead, just as her mother probably did when she had a fever. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, not a fake heart attack symptom, but something real and painful. This child, who had almost nothing, who probably treasured this worn stuffed animal above all her meager possessions, had just given it to a stranger. Not because she expected anything in return, not because she was calculating an advantage, but because she thought he needed comfort. His eyes, which he'd kept barely slitted for the performance, began to sting with real tears. Marcus lay perfectly still, but inside, his mind was reeling. The weight of the worn stuffed rabbit on his chest felt heavier than it should, each threadbare patch representing a child's love and comfort, now offered freely to him. The small kiss on his forehead burned like a brand. What had he done? "The ambulance is coming, Mr. Wellington. Just hold on," Elena was saying, and he could hear genuine terror in her voice. She grabbed a cushion from a nearby chair and gently lifted his head to slide it underneath. Her hands trembled as she loosened his tie. "Sophia, baby, go sit on the couch, okay?" Elena's voice was strained, trying to stay calm for her daughter, while clearly fighting panic. "But Mr. Hops needs to stay with a nice man," Sophia protested, her small hand resting protectively on the bunny. "Yes, sweetheart, Mr. Hops can stay. You did such a good thing, giving him your bunny." Elena was crying now, tears streaming down her face as she turned back to Marcus. "Please don't die. Please. God, please don't let him die." The raw anguish in her voice shattered something in Marcus. This wasn't professional concern. This wasn't someone worried about losing a paycheck. This was genuine human compassion, the kind he'd convinced himself didn't exist anymore. She didn't even know him, not really. He was her employer, nothing more. He'd barely spoken to her beyond basic instructions over the past 3 months. Yet here she was, crying over him, praying for him. "Is there anyone I should call?" Elena asked him, leaning close. "Family? Your parents? A wife?" Marcus knew he should maintain the charade until the ambulance arrived, let it play out, but looking at Sophia's worried face and Elena's tear-stained cheeks, he couldn't do it. The test was over. These two had already shown him more genuine care in 5 minutes than he'd experienced in years. "I'm okay," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. Elena blinked, confusion replacing panic. "What?" Marcus slowly sat up, carefully cradling the stuffed bunny. Sophia's face lit up with relief, but Elena just stared at him, not understanding. "I'm not having a heart attack," Marcus admitted, shame flooding through him. I'm so sorry. I was testing you. I wanted to see what you would do. The words sounded monstrous even as he said them. What kind of person did something like this? Elena rocked back on her heels, her face cycling through confusion, relief, and then settling on something harder. You were testing me? I need to call 911 back and cancel the ambulance, Marcus said, reaching for his own phone. He made the call, apologizing to the dispatcher and assuring them it was a false alarm, that he was fine. When he hung up, Elena was standing, her arms wrapped around herself. Sophia, sensing the shift in mood, had retrieved Mr. Hops and was clutching him tightly, her thumb in her mouth, a habit Elena was usually trying to break. I don't understand, Elena said slowly. You pretended to be dying to test me? To see if I would steal from you? To see if I would call the tabloids first? Marcus flinched. Put that way, it sounded even worse. After my last relationship ended, I discovered she'd been selling stories about me for months. My business partner tried to edge me out of my own company last year. My college roommate wrote a tell-all book filled with fabrications. I've learned that everyone wants something from me, and I thought... He trailed off, realizing how hollow his justification sounded. You thought I would too, Elena finished, her voice flat. You thought that I... what? Would rob you while you lay dying? Post about it on social media? I don't know what I thought, Marcus admitted. I just needed to know if there was anyone who would help me without expecting something in return. Elena stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression. Not anger, but profound disappointment, which somehow felt worse. Mr. Wellington, she said quietly, I clean toilets for a living. I work 3 jobs to pay rent on a 1-bedroom apartment where my daughter and I share a mattress on the floor. I buy our clothes from thrift stores, and I haven't been able to afford to take Sophia to a real dentist yet, just the free clinic. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. Do you know what I think about when I clean your home? Marcus shook his head, unable to speak. I think about how the marble in your bathroom cost more than I'll earn in 5 years. I think about how you have 14 different kinds of coffee in your kitchen, and I've been drinking the same generic store brand for 2 years because it's 50 cents cheaper. I think about how your guest bedrooms are bigger than my entire apartment, and they just sit empty. Each word was a knife, and Marcus deserved every cut. But you know what else I think? Elena continued. I think about how lucky I am to have this job because you pay fairly and you've never once made me feel small or ashamed of what I do. I think about how you asked about my daughter by name, which no one else ever does. I think about how you said she could stay here today when my sitter canceled, when you could have just sent me home without pay. Elena's eyes filled with tears again, but she blinked them back. I would never steal from you. I would never hurt you. Not because you pay me, but because that's not who I am. My daughter and I might not have much, but we have integrity. We have kindness. And I'm teaching her that how we treat people matters, especially when no one is watching. Sophia, not fully understanding but sensing her mother's distress, came over and wrapped her small arms around Elena's leg. Elena picked her up, holding her close. I understand rich people probably get taken advantage of, Elena said more quietly. And I'm sorry that happened to you. But, Mr. Wellington, if you can't trust anyone, if you think everyone is out to get you, then what's the point of having all this? She gestured around at the luxury surrounding them. You're building walls with your money, not bridges. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. She was right. She was absolutely right. And he'd been so wrong. You're fired, Elena said suddenly, and Marcus's head snapped up in shock, until he realized she was firing him, not the other way around. I won't work for someone who thinks so little of me that he'd fake a medical emergency to test my character. Sophia, and I will go now. Wait, Marcus said urgently, standing up. Please wait. Elena paused at the door, turning back with a questioning look. You're right, Marcus said, the words coming out in a rush. You're absolutely right about everything. What I did was cruel and manipulative, and you have every reason to walk out that door and never speak to me again. But please, I'm asking you not to go. Not because I'm your employer, but because I need someone like you in my life. Elena stood frozen at the door, her hand on the knob, Sophia heavy in her arms. Marcus could see the war playing out on her face, the urge to leave with her dignity intact versus something else, something softer. Why should I stay? Elena asked finally. Give me one good reason that isn't about money. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, trying to find words for feelings he barely understood himself. Because in 3 months of working here, you and your daughter are the only people who have treated me like a human being instead of a bank account. Because when I was lying on that floor, fake dying, you cried real tears. Because your daughter gave me her most precious possession to make me feel better, and she didn't even know my first name. He looked at the worn bunny still in his hands. I'm 33 years old, and I've been chasing wealth and power since I was 20. I built an empire. I won. And you know what I've realized? I'm the poorest person I know, because I don't have what you have. And what's that? Elena's voice was cautious. Love. Real connection. Someone who would miss me if I was actually gone. Marcus's voice cracked. My parents would miss their dividend checks. My friends would miss the networking opportunities. But who would miss me? Who would cry like you just did? Sophia, who had been watching Marcus with those enormous eyes, suddenly wiggled to be put down. Elena set her on her feet, and the little girl walked back to Marcus, looking up at him seriously. Are you crying? Sophia asked, tilting her head. Marcus touched his face, and was surprised to find it wet. Yes, sweetheart, I guess I am. It's okay to cry, Sophia said matter-of-factly. Mommy says feelings have to come out or they get stuck inside and make your tummy hurt. Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling. Your mommy is very smart. The smartest, Sophia agreed loyally. Then, with a child's simple wisdom, she added, you should say sorry better. Sophia, Elena started, but Marcus held up a hand. No, she's right. He got down on one knee so he was at Sophia's level, then looked up at Elena. Elena Rodriguez, I am deeply, truly sorry. What I did was wrong on every level. I manipulated you, frightened you, and abused the power dynamic between us as employer and employee. I wasted the time of emergency responders. I showed you profound disrespect. He paused, making sure he had her full attention. I can't take it back. But I can promise you it will never happen again. I can promise that if you give me another chance, I will work every day to be worthy of the kindness you and your daughter showed me this morning. Not as your employer, but as someone who wants to learn from you how to be a better person. Elena's eyes searched his face, looking for sincerity, for truth. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because her shoulders gradually relaxed. I'm still angry, she said. You should be. And I don't trust you. I'll earn it. And if you ever do something like that again, you'll quit on the spot, and I'll deserve it, Marcus finished. I'll also write you a reference letter that will get you any job you want. Elena sighed, a long exhale that seemed to release some of her tension. Fine. I'll stay. But things need to change around here. Name it, Marcus said immediately. First, you're going to pay for my childcare. Not deduct it from my salary, actually pay for it. A real daycare where Sophia can learn and play with other kids, not my neighbor's teenager who props her in front of YouTube. Marcus nodded. Done. What else? Second, you're going to stop hiding in this penthouse like some tragic villain in a tower. When's the last time you actually talked to someone who wasn't trying to get something from you? And I mean really talked, not business talk. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. He honestly couldn't remember. That's what I thought, Elena said. So here's what's going to happen. Once a week, you're going to have dinner with me and Sophia. Not fancy catered meals. I'm going to cook, and you're going to sit at a normal table and have a normal conversation. I don't want to impose on your personal time, Marcus protested. Elena gave him a look. Mr. Wellington, you just faked a heart attack to test my character. I think we're past the point of formal boundaries. Besides, you said you wanted to learn how to be a better person. Well, lesson 1 is learning how to be part of a community, not an island. She's 3, Marcus pointed out, gesturing to Sophia. Wouldn't it be more fun for you to have adult conversation? Mr. Wellington. Marcus, he interrupted. Please call me Marcus. Elena blinked, surprised, but nodded. Marcus, then. Sophia is the best conversationalist I know. She asks questions about everything. She's curious about the world, and she hasn't learned to hide her feelings yet. You could learn a lot from her. Sophia, hearing her name, piped up. I know all my colors. Even purple and pink and the special green that's in between. Teal. Marcus guessed. Yes. That one. Sophia bounced excitedly. Do you know your colors? I do, Marcus said seriously. Though I've never been very good with the special in-between ones. I can teach you, Sophia offered generously. I'm a very good teacher. My mommy says so. Marcus felt his heart squeeze. I would be honored to have you as my teacher. Elena watched this exchange with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. There's one more thing, she said. Anything. You need to see a therapist. Marcus reared back, surprised. What? Marcus, healthy people don't fake medical emergencies to test whether others care about them. You said you've been betrayed a lot, and I'm sure that's true. But those are wounds, and wounds need treatment, not just bandages. Elena's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying it because I think underneath all that money and suspicion, there's a good person who's been hurt and doesn't know how to heal. Marcus wanted to protest, to defend himself, but the words died in his throat. She was right. Again. How did this woman who cleaned his house for a living see him more clearly than anyone else in his life? I don't even know where to start, he admitted quietly. I'll help you find someone, Elena offered. My cousin is a social worker. She'll know good therapists who work with, high-profile clients. Thank you, Marcus said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. For everything. For not walking out. For giving me a chance I probably don't deserve. Everyone deserves a chance to be better, Elena said. That's what I tell Sophia. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after. Sophia tugged on Marcus's hand, drawing his attention back to her. Can I have Mr. Hops back now? He gets scared if I'm gone too long. Marcus carefully handed over the worn bunny, watching as Sophia cuddled it close. Thank you for lending him to me, Sophia. He really did make me feel better. That's his job, Sophia said proudly. He's very good at it. That Friday evening, Marcus found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, feeling nervous about a social engagement. He'd addressed rooms full of hostile shareholders, negotiated with cutthroat competitors, given TED Talks to thousands. But the thought of having dinner with Elena and Sophia made his palms sweat. He'd offered to have something catered, but Elena had firmly refused. The whole point is normal, she'd reminded him. So instead, Marcus found himself in the strange position of having someone else cooking in his state-of-the-art kitchen while he hovered awkwardly nearby. You can sit down, Elena said without looking up from the chicken she was preparing. You're making me nervous hovering like that. Sorry. Marcus retreated to one of the bar stools. I usually don't let anyone use the kitchen. When's the last time you used the kitchen? Marcus thought about it. The coffee maker. This morning. Elena shook her head, but he caught the hint of a smile. A whole kitchen that costs more than a house, and it's only used for coffee. That's a crime against food. Sophia was coloring at the kitchen table, her tongue poking out in concentration as she worked on what appeared to be a very elaborate rainbow. She'd been chattering since they arrived, telling Marcus about her day at her new daycare, which Marcus had indeed paid for, along with a month's rent for Elena when he found out she'd been 2 weeks behind. And then Jacob said the sky couldn't be purple, but I told him it could during sunset, so I can draw it purple if I want, Sophia declared, adding yet another purple crayon stroke to her picture. Jacob sounds like he needs to be more open-minded about artistic expression, Marcus said seriously. Sophia nodded vigorously. That's what I said. Well, Mommy told me the fancy words later, but I said you're being bossy about colors, and that's the same thing. Elena laughed. Sophia, baby, you can't call your classmates bossy. Why not? You call your boss bossy sometimes. Elena's eyes widened, and her gaze shot to Marcus, her cheeks flushing. Sophia. But Marcus was laughing, really laughing, in a way he couldn't remember doing in months. Which boss? The one at the restaurant or the insurance office? Both, Elena admitted, her mortification fading into sheepishness. In my defense, they are both extremely bossy. What about me? Marcus asked, curious despite himself. Sophia and Elena exchanged a glance, and Sophia giggled. Mommy says you're, what was it, Mommy? Sophia Elena Rodriguez. I will take away dessert. Emotionally constipated, Sophia finished triumphantly, clearly delighted by the funny words even if she didn't fully understand them. There was a moment of horrified silence from Elena, and then Marcus burst out laughing again. That's probably the most accurate description anyone's given of me. I am so sorry, Elena said, abandoning her cooking to cover her face with her hands. I was venting to my sister on the phone, and little ears hear everything and… Elena, it's fine, Marcus assured her, still grinning. It's actually refreshing. Do you know how many people tell me exactly what they think I want to hear? This is honest. I'll take honest over flattering any day. Elena peeked through her fingers. You're not mad. Not even a little. Though I am curious about what other descriptions you've given. I plead the fifth, Elena said, returning to her chicken with pink cheeks. Dinner turned out to be simple but delicious. Roasted chicken with vegetables and rice, the kind of home-cooked meal Marcus realized he hadn't had since before his grandmother died. He realized with a pang. 8 years ago. They ate at the kitchen table rather than the formal dining room, and Sophia kept up a steady stream of chatter about her friends at daycare, a caterpillar she'd seen, and an elaborate fantasy game involving Mr. Hops saving the world from mean vegetables. Wait, Marcus interrupted. Why are the vegetables mean? Sophia gave him a look that suggested this was obvious. Because I don't like eating them, so they must be mean. That's not exactly how that works, sweetheart, Elena said, but she was smiling. Can't argue with that logic, Marcus said, earning a grateful grin from Sophia and an exasperated look from Elena. After dinner, Sophia started to fade, rubbing her eyes with little fists. Elena scooped her up. Say thank you to Marcus for having us for dinner, baby. Thank you, Marcus, Sophia mumbled into her mother's shoulder, then perked up slightly. Can we come back? You're a good listener, and you laugh at my jokes. Something warm bloomed in Marcus's chest. I would love for you to come back. In fact, I'm counting on it. Your mommy said every week, remember? Every week. Sophia agreed sleepily. And you can come to my house too, but it's really small, and we only have one chair. Sophia, you don't have to. Elena started, but Marcus cut her off. I would be honored to visit your home, Sophia. Chairs are overrated anyway. After they left, Marcus stood in his kitchen, his huge, professionally equipped, barely used kitchen, and looked at the evidence of the evening. Dishes in the sink. Sophia's rainbow picture left on the table. A child's jacket forgotten on the back of a chair. His penthouse had never felt more like a home. Over the following weeks, Marcus found his life shifting in ways he never anticipated. The weekly dinners became the highlight of his week, something he looked forward to with an anticipation he usually reserved for major business deals. Elena was teaching him to cook, or trying to anyway. How can someone who built a multi-billion-dollar company not know how to make scrambled eggs? She'd asked in exasperation after his third attempt resulted in something resembling rubber. Different skill sets? Marcus had offered weakly. But slowly he was learning. Learning to measure spices, to know when something was properly seasoned, to time multiple dishes, so everything came out hot at once. More importantly, he was learning to find peace in the simple act of creating something with his hands, something that nourished rather than just accumulated. Sophia had become his unlikely teacher in other ways. She taught him about colors, not just their names, but really seeing them. They spent an hour one day just looking at the sunset, with Sophia pointing out all the different shades as the sky changed. "See," she'd said, pressed against the window. "It's like someone spilled all the colors and they're running together. The gold and the pink and the purple. That's my favorite part of the day." Marcus had looked at thousands of sunsets from these windows and never really seen them until Sophia pointed them out. She taught him about questions, too. Sophia asked questions about everything. Why was the sky blue? Where did pigeons sleep? Why did adults drink coffee if it tasted yucky? How did elevators know which floor to go to? At first, Marcus had tried to give her technically accurate answers, but he soon realized that wasn't what she wanted. She wanted to explore ideas, to imagine possibilities. "I think pigeons have tiny houses in the trees that we can't see because they're magic," Sophia declared one day. The old Marcus would have corrected her, explained about nests and roosting behaviors. The new Marcus said, "What do you think the houses look like?" Sophia's face had lit up. "Pink, with purple doors, and tiny beds with flower blankets." Elena's lessons were deeper, often taught without words. He watched how she budgeted carefully, how she found joy in small things. A good sale at the grocery store, Sophia's laughter, a moment of sunshine on a cold day. She worked with a dignity that humbled him, never complaining about exhaustion, even though he knew she was often running on 4 hours of sleep. He'd try to help in other ways. When he found out Sophia needed dental work that the free clinic couldn't provide, he'd arranged for his own dentist to see her, and then endured a 20-minute lecture from Elena about boundaries and charity and pride. "I don't want your pity," Elena had said, her eyes flashing. "I don't want to be your project." "You're not," Marcus had insisted. "Sophia is a child who needs medical care. If I saw any child in pain and I could help, I would. Is it really charity if I'm not even going to miss the money?" They'd argued in circles until finally Elena had thrown up her hands. "Fine. But I'm paying you back." "Elena, a pediatric dental procedure costs. I don't care if it costs $1 million. I'm paying you back. $10 a week if that's what it takes." They'd compromised. She would pay him back, but only after he'd agreed to match whatever she paid into a college fund for Sophia. "So really, you're helping her future self," Marcus had argued. "Think of it as an investment in the next generation." Elena had seen through this logic but had accepted it anyway, probably because Sophia's toothache had been getting worse. The therapy Elena had recommended was proving transformative too. Dr. Sarah Chun was in her 50s, patient but direct, and she'd made Marcus confront truths about himself he'd been avoiding for years. "You've built walls to protect yourself from being hurt again," Dr. Chun had observed during one session. "But walls keep out the bad and the good. You're not just protecting yourself from betrayal, you're protecting yourself from connection." "But how do I know who to trust?" Marcus had asked, frustrated. "You don't. That's the risk of being human. We get hurt. But Marcus, you're already hurt. You're lonely and isolated and suspicious of everyone. How is that better than taking a chance on connection?" The answer, of course, was that it wasn't better. It was just familiar. One evening, about 2 months after the fake heart attack incident, Marcus received a call from his brother, David, someone he hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Mark, I need a favor," David said without preamble. "I've got an investment opportunity. Need about $2 million to." "No," Marcus said simply. There was a surprised pause. "What do you mean, no?" You haven't even heard the details. I mean, no, I'm not giving you money for your latest scheme. But I would like to have coffee with you. Actually talk, not just transaction. I don't need a lecture. I need capital. Then I guess you need to call someone else, Marcus said, and felt a strange sense of peace. The money is off the table, David. But my time, my attention, my brotherhood, that's available if you want it. David had hung up on him. It hurt, but it was also clarifying. His brother didn't want him, just his wallet. And recognizing that, naming it, freed something inside Marcus. The next day, he told Elena and Sophia about it during dinner. Did it make you sad? Sophia asked, her eyes wide with concern. Yes, sweetheart, it did, Marcus admitted, but also kind of relieved. Does that make sense? Sophia thought about it seriously. When I broke my favorite crayon, I was sad, but also then I could use both pieces at once and color two things. Sometimes broken things can still be okay. Elena smoothed her daughter's hair. That's very wise, baby. It really is, Marcus agreed. Maybe my relationship with my brother was already broken, and I just finally noticed. So, what will you do? Elena asked. Try to build better ones, Marcus said, looking at the two of them across the table. I'm learning from excellent teachers. 6 months after the fake heart attack, Marcus's life was unrecognizable, not in its external trappings, but in its essence. He still ran his company, still lived in the penthouse, still had wealth beyond imagination. But now those things felt like tools rather than barriers, means rather than ends. The biggest change came on a rainy Tuesday in April. Elena had been quiet all week, stressed in a way that went beyond normal tiredness. Finally, over their weekly dinner, Marcus asked what was wrong. My landlord is selling the building, Elena said, pushing food around her plate. We have 60 days to find a new place, and everything in our price range is not great. Not safe. One place I looked at had mold in the bathroom and bars on the windows, and I can't raise Sophia there. Marcus's mind immediately went to solutions. He could buy a building, he could pay for a better apartment, he could. But he stopped himself. Elena's earlier words echoed in his head. I don't want to be your project. What if I had a proposition? Marcus said carefully. Not charity, a genuine arrangement that would benefit both of us. Elena looked skeptical. I'm listening. This penthouse has 4 bedrooms. I use 1. The other 3 just sit empty, along with 2 full bathrooms, a complete second kitchen in the guest wing that I've never even turned on, and about 3,000 square feet of space that serves no purpose except making me feel more isolated. Marcus. Hear me out, he said. What if you and Sophia moved into the guest wing? Completely separate entrance, your own space, your own kitchen. You'd pay rent. He held up a hand as she started to protest. But actual market rate for a room rental, not penthouse prices. $700 a month, same as you're paying now. That's insane, Elena said flatly. This is Manhattan. This penthouse is worth more than I can ever use by myself, Marcus finished. Elena, I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you safety and security for Sophia, and for me. I'm asking for something money can't buy. Which is? Family, Marcus said simply. Not in a weird way, not in a way that crosses boundaries. But you and Sophia have taught me what it means to have people in your life who actually care. Who ask how your day was and mean it. Who laugh with you and teach you things and make the world feel less empty. He took a breath. I want to see my parents last month. First time in 2 years. Do you know what my mother asked me within the first 5 minutes? Whether I was planning to update my will. Not how I was, not what I'd been doing, just making sure her inheritance was secure. Elena's face softened with sympathy. When Sophia sees me, her face lights up. She runs to give me a hug. She tells me about her day, shows me her drawings, asks if I want to play her game about the magic pigeons. When you cook dinner, you make enough for me without me asking. Last week, when I was stressed about a board meeting, you told me to breathe and made me tea and said it would be okay. Marcus's voice grew thick. That's what I'm asking for. Not a service, not a transaction. A chance to be part of something real. And in return, you get a safe home for Sophia, good schools in the district, that second kitchen you could actually use, and a built-in babysitter when I'm home and you need to run errands. Sophia, who had been quietly playing with Mr. Hops during this conversation, suddenly piped up. Does that mean we'd live here? With the big windows and the magic sunset colors? If your mommy says yes, Marcus told her. Sophia turned enormous pleading eyes on her mother. Mommy, please? We could see the sunset every day. Elena was crying, Marcus realized. Silent tears streaming down her face. I don't want you to feel obligated, Marcus said quickly. If this is too weird, if I've overstepped. You haven't, Elena whispered. It's just, do you know what I pray for every night? Safety for Sophia. A good home. Someone who would help me if something happened, because I'm all she has. Her voice broke. And you're offering all of that. So, is that a yes? Elena wiped her eyes, laughing and crying at the same time. Against every logical thought in my head, yes. But we're writing up a real lease. Real terms. Real rent. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll figure it out like family does, Marcus said. With honesty and communication and respect. Yay! Sophia leaped up from her chair, dancing around the kitchen. Mr. Hops is so excited. He's never had a big home before. The move happened over the following month. Marcus found himself enjoying the process more than he'd expected, helping Sophia pick out paint colors for her room, purple and pink, naturally, watching as Elena's worn furniture found new life in better light, being consulted on every decision like his opinion actually mattered. The night they officially moved in, Marcus ordered pizza. He still couldn't cook pizza from scratch, despite Elena's patient lessons, and they had a living room picnic, because Sophia's favorite blanket needed to christen the new space. I have something for you both, Marcus said after dinner. He pulled out 2 small boxes. Elena looked suspicious. Marcus, we talked about gifts. Not gifts. Symbols. He opened the first box, revealing a simple key. This is to the private elevator and the front door. Your own key, because this is your home too. Elena took the key with trembling fingers. Thank you. The second box he handed to Sophia. Inside was a small silver necklace with a heart pendant, but the heart was designed to look like it was made of patches, like a stuffed animal sewn together with love. This is to remind you, Marcus said to Sophia, that you fixed something in me that I didn't even know was broken. You gave me Mr. Hops when you thought I needed comfort, and that gift, that moment of pure kindness, changed my whole life. Sophia touched the necklace with wonder. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Not as beautiful as your heart, Marcus said, and found he had to clear his throat. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Elena, for giving a lonely billionaire the only thing his money couldn't buy. What's that? Sophia asked. A family. Elena was crying again, and Marcus found his own eyes weren't exactly dry either. Sophia, in the way of children, turned the tender moment into action by launching herself at both adults and declaring, "Group hug." They stood there in the middle of the living room, this unlikely family. A billionaire who'd learned that wealth meant nothing without connection, a single mother who'd taught him dignity and struggle, and a 3-year-old who'd reminded him that kindness was the greatest currency of all. Later that night, after Sophia was asleep in her new purple room and Elena had retired to the guest wing, Marcus stood at his usual spot by the window. The city lights still flickered like earthbound stars, but they looked different now. Less like reminders of his isolation, more like evidence of all the other people out there, struggling, loving, hoping, trying. He thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, so suspicious and hurt that he'd fake a heart attack to test someone's character. He'd been looking for betrayal because that's what he'd learned to expect. But Sophia had taught him to look for magic pigeon houses instead. Elena had taught him that dignity and wealth had nothing to do with each other. And together, they taught him the most important lesson, that the heart wasn't something to be guarded behind walls, but something that grew stronger the more openly you shared it. Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at the photo he'd taken earlier, Sophia in her new room, dancing with Mr. Hops, her face incandescent with joy. He made it his phone's wallpaper, replacing the stock image that had been there. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd call David again. And his parents. Not to offer money, but to offer what he'd learned. That connection was always possible if both people were willing to risk being real. If they rejected it, that would hurt. But thanks to a poor maid and her toddler with a worn stuffed bunny, Marcus finally understood that the risk of hurt was always worth the possibility of love. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Sophia wants you to know that Mr. Hops says thank you for the beautiful home and that you're invited to her tea party tomorrow at 4 p.m. Formal dress code, pajamas. Marcus smiled and typed back, please tell Mr. Hops I wouldn't miss it for the world. And he meant it, because somewhere along the way, in letting a struggling mother and her kind-hearted daughter into his home, Marcus Wellington III had finally found what he'd been looking for all along. Not someone who would pass a test, but people who taught him that the only test that mattered was whether you showed up with an open heart. And thanks to a 3-year-old girl who once kissed his forehead and offered him her most precious treasure, Marcus had finally learned how to pass.